This is Jay Severin from WTKK in Boston. And
reasonable Republican.
What you're about to hear is nowhere near acceptable. As Ben pointed out, we
I was going to say, you can't defend. I'd fire him now.
All right. So what is that bad?
Have you ever heard the word he used that begins with a C and ends with onions?
Yes. Oh no, I have not.
It's a great word. Get ready for the best word you've maybe heard, certainly this week.
All right, Jay Severin. Here you go.
We're talking about illegal immigration. So now, in addition to venereal disease and the other leading exports of Mexico, women with mustaches and VD, now we have swine flu. But now it's too late to do anything at the borders because, of course, we didn't do anything. So now it's too late to do anything. And when we are the magnet for primitives around the world, and it's not the primitives' fault, by the way. I'm not blaming them for being primitives. I'm merely observing they are primitives. And when you scoop up some of the world's lowest of primitives in poor Mexico and drop it down in the middle of the United States, poor, without skills, without language, not sure our culture, not sure our hygiene, haven't been vaccinated, look at all the things we take for granted. It's millions of leeches from a primitive country come here to leech off you. And with it, they are ruining the schools, the hospitals, and a lot of life in America. Now, at this particular moment in history, they are exporting to us a rather more active form of disease, which is the swine flu. California, and middle-class people are fleeing California in droves to get away from the criminaliens, as we know. The governor has declared a state of emergency because of the disease. Hundreds of kids are sick. It says many hundreds of students are sick in New York City schools from this, all of them because of Mexicans. We should be, if anything, surprised that Mexico has not visited upon us poxes of more various and serious types already, considering the number of criminaliens already here.
Criminaliens. He said it. He actually pronounced it twice. He went with criminaliens the first time, and then just criminaliens the second time.
Now, we've done a lot of terrible clips on this show. Michael Savage does it day in and day out, and the Limbaughs and the Becks, etc. But I have to say, I don't think I've heard anything this bad ever. And I'll tell you why. The criminalien stuff is so stupid that it's almost funny.
It's almost amusing, yeah.
Right. And you know what? At least there he's being a little bit more specific, referring to the illegal aliens coming in. And I actually have the least amount of problem with that word.
Mm-hmm. Although he's suggesting that every Mexican who's here is a criminal.
Yes, I understand that, and that by itself, you can have a good open debate as to whether he should be suspended or fired, et cetera, et cetera.
But I agree. It's actually it is among the least offensive, and offensive is not the right word. It's among the least sort of outrageously scandalous things that he said.
And in that debate, I would probably come out on the side of not firing him for saying that because he's referring to illegal aliens, and he can make a case.
And it's moderately clever.
Yeah,
I mean,
just awkward.
Just as wordplay.
Right. Now, when he got into the hygiene of the Mexicans and then the VD and the
women with VD, that's Mexico's biggest export, is what he said.
If he had done just the mustache joke, I chalk it up to a joke.
Bad joke, right? Sure, I don't fire people for bad jokes.
But I'm still not haven't lost them. But then he got to the third level, at which point, it went way beyond acceptable, describing them as leeches, and then, of course, the primitives.
The primitives.
When he started talking about the primitives, I got so angry. And you know what? The thing that makes me even sicker is this guy, I've been to these Tobia host conventions and stuff. He'll go to those conventions, and he'll be treated as a hero, as a First Amendment martyr. Right now, he's been suspended by WTKK.
Oh, they have suspended him for this.
They have suspended him. His lawyer is confident that he'll come back on air. But here's what I'm confident about. Whether he goes back on air at that station or not, somebody else will hire him for more money later because he's a First Amendment hero and he's a conservative, et cetera, and they will hire any conservative for any reason.
Yeah.
Now, but this is beyond the pale. He has a First Amendment right to say it. Doesn't mean you should say it on your station. And this calling people primitives, I mean, it's not it's not just that it oozes of racism, it is the definition of racism. To say that people from another country are primitive, that you're above them. I mean, it is the exact history of racism. To say, oh, like these people, they're so below us, they're primitives, and they're leeching off of us, the productive people, the white people, etc. I mean, do I have to continue explaining this at all? But what bothers me is that people will defend this guy. That they will say, no, but you don't understand. You're being politically correct because these Mexicans are bringing in the disease. Which brings me to point number 2. They had just found out that the first case of swine flu was not in Mexico. It was in California. 2 cases.
By an immigrant originally from Mexico.
No, by Americans. 2 cases in March before anything happened in Mexico. It happened in California, okay? And the main pig farm...
Did those people like Mexican food?
Aha! The main pig farm in Mexico, by the way, that this spread from, where 60% of the town is sick, owned by an American company.
But allowing the Mexican hygiene and the primitive hygiene, which is filled with venereal disease, to sort of overtake things.
I'm surprised it took this long.
Yeah.
By the way, it's 50-50 owned by an American company and a Mexican company. Science magazine also says that this particular flu strain virus started actually in 1998 and evolved from a strain that cropped up in a U.S. hog farm. Now, but Science magazine, what would they know? They're just a bunch of scientists. And, of course, you dismiss all of that. But I feel sick that I have to even explain that this disease is not somehow related to Mexicans. Like I said before, this guy is the definition of racist. This one, I don't know, there was something about it that just, it put me in fight mode. Like, I got, like, God, I'm not going to tell you what I wanted to do, but...
I wanted to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay? And it reminded me, and now I'm going to take it over the top, but it did remind me, so I'm going to be honest with you, it reminded me of the propagandists in Nazi Germany. Because the first thing you're supposed to do is pick another and dehumanize
them, minimize them.
And
make
so
them,
when
make certain that people believe they are less than you.
They are not humans, they're primitives.
Dirty Jews.
Right, and they're not humans, they're animals, they're leeches, and they're leeching off of you. God, I mean, it's Nazi propaganda
No, it's exactly
101.
It is exactly what they said about Jews and gypsies and everybody else, but mainly Jews. Jews were dirty and they will leech off you.
And
they're not clean. They literally said the Jews aren't clean.
Let me add one other thing to this. The reason that he's allowed to go this far against Mexicans is because you can take racial, comments against Mexicans and Muslims in this country much farther than you can take any other racial comment.
If he'd said black, or God forbid in this country if he'd said Jewish, he wouldn't work again. Even if he'd said this about black people, he'd be done. There would not be a station that hired him. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you completely. He'll work again, and he'll work for more money.
And earlier, I even left this out because at this point, Muslims you can go to work on them. Nobody gives a damn, right? When a caller asked him...
Muslim, they just forget he said it about Muslims. The station manager of that station would have given him a $1,000 bonus at the end of the day in cash.
Well, by the way, because he already had and never got suspended for it. Well, when they asked him about Muslims, hey, shouldn't we be trying to reach out to some of them? He said, no, the only thing we should do with Muslims is kill them all.
Well, I mean, who he reminded me of, you mentioned, you took it, I think, thoughtfully to, it's rare that you can make the Nazi comparison. And I don't like, hey, come on.
Right.
But it's too obvious here. I mean, believe me, I'm not suggesting Jay Severin is a Nazi in any way. Nobody would make that argument. But it is precisely the same.
The thing that pisses me off almost more than anything else is that this seeps into his audience. That so many dumb assholes listen to this, excuse the language, and will think, oh yeah, they are primitives, and then they'll do something. I don't know if it's something violent. I don't know if it's just simply not hiring someone who's a Mexican American, or not giving them, a house that they need, or a loan that they need, or whatever, because they are not humans. They're leeches, and they're leeching off of us, and this has real consequences. As you can tell, it bothers me to no end. And I'm so used to... The only thing lower than Mexicans in the totem pole is Muslims. But they're so low, like I said earlier, nobody gives a damn. You can say kill them all, and that's perfectly acceptable. So I didn't even get into it with Severin when he said the Muslim comments. But this is beyond the pale.